Hello 7-6, this is your final lesson on the Dystopian project, and today we're finally going to create a dystopian story of our own, or of your own. So your lesson objectives this week are to plan the plot and the storyline of the dystopian story, and to recognise and use a range of descriptive writing techniques by writing the story itself. So just a quick recap. We've so far worked on understanding what dystopian fiction is, so the various conventions that you'll find in that genre. Recognising and creating the setting, so you should now all have created your own setting, and then a character as well. We created a character, and either protagonist or antagonist, so two or one main character. And now we're going to have a look at the plot. So to write a successful narrative or story, you need to have a plan of the plot. So we need to have a think about what's your story going to be about and what is the purpose. Now I know many of you might already have an idea for this. It may well have played a part in the planning of the setting that you've done and the characters that you've created as well. You also need to decide what is going to happen to your main character. And does something dramatic happen at the climax, which it should do, because all good stories have a climax. It could be a major discovery, it could be a fight, a death, it could be a moment of revelation when somebody realised something about the world that they're in. And then how does it end? So your first task is going to be to plan, and it needs to be a detailed plan, because we know that in dystopian fiction, in this particular genre, there are lots of elements that make it dystopian. So we want to try and include as many of those as possible. Now I've attached on Go for Schools a grid that you can use to fill in to help you plan. But I'll just run through what sort of things you need to put in there. So you're going to have a beginning, obviously, and that's going to be where you outline your setting and your main character. Try and include thorough and detailed descriptions of both of those things. Consider what kind of world are you living in. Reveal how or why this could be considered a dystopian society. So you obviously won't say this is a dystopian society because, but you'd want to give definite hints at what's going on so the reader can really tell that this is a dystopian society. So it might be that you talk about a tyrannical government. It could be that you refer to different robots that are in charge. It might be that you're in an urban area that's very much falling apart, and you have a lack of resources. You need to really think about how you're going to reveal the information, and do it slowly and subtly. So so you're just hinting at things. You're not just giving everybody all the information straight away. Then you need to consider your rising action. So you're going to introduce a problem. What is it that your protagonist, your main character, is unhappy with or trying to achieve in the story? How are they going to get there? And what might be standing in their way? So what obstacle have they got to overcome and get round? Then you'll have the climax. So this is the point that we mentioned earlier, where there'll be some sort of dramatic action or a turning point in the story. Is it when your protagonist and antagonist, so your two main characters that are against each other, finally meet? Do they discover something shocking in the world? Is there a revelation, like we said? Is there a fight? Or is it that somebody dies? It could be many other things, but it needs to be something that really stands out as the main point of action in your story. And then finally you'll have the falling action. So then, is there a resolution? And it doesn't have to be a happily ever after. Often stories, what makes them very good is the fact that there is no final answer, that there's a kind of bit of a moment. You know, you're waiting to see what happens, and maybe it's the next book or the next story that reveals what happens. So you're going to want a decrease in action and then a resolution of some kind, but it doesn't have to be a happily ever after, as we've said. So considering these things, I'd like you to fill in this short story plan. So you can print it off or just draw yourself a table. And just to help you do that, this is a nice visual of what your plot should look like. So you've got the beginning at the bottom, the rising action, the climax at the top, then the falling action and the resolution. So that's just a nice way of visualising what we're saying. If you haven't decided on a plot, we've got various scenarios here that might help. So what I would do is pause this video and you can have a read through them. So there's this one here, there's 4 on slide 1 and 5 on slide 2. So these might give you a bit of inspiration of where you'd like to start your story, sorry. So the first one, for instance, is you are a brain surgeon, and every time you perform a surgery, you have the ability to see memories of the patient you are operating on. So that could be the opener to your story. If you're struggling for an opening, it might just be that you use that as inspiration for your story, or any of these. So pause the lesson now, have a read through these and just see what your options might be. And even if you've chosen your plots, read through them, because it might be that you can add something in from these ideas to yours to make it a bit better, or to just change it slightly. So you should now have read those and hopefully have a good idea of where you want to take your story. So you now need to fill in your table here. Make sure that you include lots of detail. If you find it easy to draw a mind map, just make sure that your mind map has these 5 headings of first sentence, beginning, rising action, climax, falling action and resolution. So you can either do it as a table or as a mind map. If you're still really stuck on an idea for your story plot, you could go onto this website here. I'll put this link on Go for Schools, and you can generate your own plot by putting in some information. And there's an example on the right for the year 2100, Year of Zombies, that the sort of thing that might come up when you put in the information into the plot generator. So now you should have a good understanding of what dystopian fiction is, be able to recognise the setting and character, and you should have now created the plan for your plot. So your second task is to actually write your story. Now remember to use the knowledge and the notes on the table from your plan and all your information that you've done in the last few weeks on setting and character, and use descriptive language. So use your similes, your metaphors, your alliterations and your adjectives. Show, don't tell. So don't make it obvious what you're trying to tell me. Don't tell me that, for instance, say your character was called Bob, and you said Bob had short brown hair. Instead of saying it like that, you could say something along the lines of Bob turned his head to the sound coming from behind him. He felt the short spikes of his hair felt, hang on, where am I taking this? He felt the short spikes of his hair tingle as he realised what was going on. Something like that. So it's slightly less obvious, but you're creating slowly an image of what this character is and also what's happening in the story. Ideally try to write 1 to 5 sides of A4. So for some of you, 5 sides will be really achievable. Some of you, 1 will be a much more realistic amount for you to write. But just make sure that you cover the 5 elements as seen here, in however long your story is, 1 or 5 sides, and also that you remember it's a short story, so don't get to 5 sides and you're only, just got to the climax of your story. So once you've written your story, I want you to do a bit of self-assessment and editing. So you will send your story to me, but I'd like you to do your own assessment. By assessment, I don't mean give yourself a level or anything like that, but I want you to have a look through and really evaluate what you've written and how well you've done. So your third task is to reread your story and identify any dystopian features you've included, highlight or underline them, or put a box around them. They might be anything from this list below. So it might be the setting, the protagonist and antagonist, any technological advances or references that you put in, and anything else that you've put in there that hints at it being a dystopian novel that isn't mentioned above. And then highlight or underline or put a box around any language devices that you've used. And I want you to put a label next to them for which one you've used. And then highlight or circle any ambitious word choices that you've used. So any words that you think, actually, that I really tried with that word, I used that word to give a specific feeling or image about this scenario. Make sure that you highlight or circle that one. When you've done that, I'd like you to have a read through this table. Tick yes or no to each of these statements. Now you can either copy them down, or I have attached this again to Go for School, so you can print it off if you're able to. Or you could just fill it in on the screen if you have access to a laptop. I think it's on a Word document, so that should be fine. And then finally, I'd like you to do a self-assessment, reflection and target setting for yourself. So usually I set you targets and reflect on your work, but I think it's a good thing for us to do our own self-criticism or critique of what we've done. And it's nice for me to see how you view your own work. So using the tasks on the previous page, so here, set yourself 3 targets. So say that you had clicked no for included, so maybe you click no for the clear structure in my writing, that you can really see the beginning, middle or end. So if that was the case, that if you feel that you actually hadn't quite got your structure accurate, one of your targets could be to improve my work, I need to ensure that my story has a definite beginning, beginning, rising action, climax, falling action and resolution. So really focus on my structure. Or it could be, as we've got here, to improve my work, I need to add more adjectives and a simile to my descriptions of the setting. So you use this table to guide you in the right direction of what 3 targets you could go for. I'd like you to then go back and improve your work. So as we would in class, different coloured pen or a different coloured font on Word, just amend what you've done. So do it underneath, don't necessarily change what you've written. Just do it underneath like we would if we were doing dirt in school. And I'd like you to actually give yourself a compliment. So I haven't put this on here, but say what you think is really good about your writing. I think we're very good at critiquing ourselves and being quite self-deprecating and saying all negative things about ourselves and recognising what we've done wrong. But quite often we find it harder to recognise what we've done right and celebrate that. So 1 to 3 things that you think is really good about your work as well. You could do those 2 things in different colours. So you could have your dirt work in a red or a green like we would in class, and then your targets in your praise in a different colour. So congratulations, you've completed the Dystopian Fiction Home project. I've put a picture of some nice coloured beach huts here to sort of reflect the fact we're going into the summer holidays. I'd really like to congratulate you all that have really committed to the work from home, tried your best, and most of the work that you've created is unbelievable, especially to think that the circumstances that we're in, that we're at home, we're not together in class. Many of you, and I've said this to you independently, your work has been better than you produce in school. And for that, you should feel incredibly proud, but also quite empowered. You should really feel like, actually, I know I can achieve this level of work. When I get back into school, I need to continue this and really step up and just keep propelling myself forward with the level of work I can do. I think when we're in school, it's very easy to get distracted. We know that, and teachers always go on about stay focused, stop talking, face the front. But I think if one thing that many of you can learn from home learning is that actually being on your own and having more of a focus, less distractions, is incredibly beneficial to your personal learning. I've certainly seen that with many of you, and I have said to you directly in emails. So celebrate that. And I'd also like to thank you for committing to the work, for being a really lovely class. I only taught you face to face for a few months. I just returned from maternity leave. I took you over from Miss Burling, who was a fantastic teacher, and then we all ended up at home learning. While I was with you face to face, you were wonderful. You fully bought into all the work that we did. You had great ideas. The work you produced was unbelievable for most of you. And you've certainly put a lot of effort in at home. And thank you for bearing with my various quirks of my videos, such as dog barking halfway through because he's seen a bumblebee and run through the house, a baby crying because she's woken up, whatever else. These are all the joys from working from home. I'd like to wish you all a lovely summer. Take care. Be mindful of all the rules and regulations that the government have put in place at the moment. We need to protect ourselves and protect your education. So hopefully everyone can be healthy to return in September. And I really look forward to seeing you around school. I don't think I'm teaching you in September, but I will be back in school, you will be back in school, and I will be able to see your lovely smiley faces. So take care and have a lovely summer.